The year is 1944. The scent across Europe is one of cinder and defeat. For the German Wehrmacht, the quick, sweeping advances that defined the early war are long gone, replaced by a desperate, grinding retreat. The war machine, which had once seemed unstoppable, is now sputtering, collapsing under the colossal weight of the Soviet industrial engine to the east and the relentless Allied pounding from the west. Cities are burning. Oil supplies are choked. The lifeblood of the German infantry is being bled dry on 1,000 battlefields. This atmosphere of utter catastrophe bred a frantic, almost religious belief in the power of the impossible. At the heart of this collapsing empire sat Adolf Hitler. Hitler, the amateur strategist and micromanager, whose every decision was now colored by manic desperation, was obsessed. Obsessed with the idea of the miracle weapon. The Wunderwaffe. He truly believed that some perfect, revolutionary technology could suddenly turn the tide, negating the overwhelming numerical and industrial advantage of the Allies. Vast resources were poured into rockets, jet fighters, and atomic research, projects fueled more by blind hope than strategic reality. But the true miracle weapon, the one that would actually change warfare forever, was not a rocket soaring through the sky. It was far more humble. It was personal. It was the rifle the common soldier held in his frozen, muddy hands. For decades, military thinkers had accepted a simple truth: the rifle had to be powerful. It had to shoot straight and hard over vast distances, often 1,000 yards. This dogma gave us beautiful, long-barreled weapons like the German Mauser Karabiner 98K. But the stark reality of World War II was that most combat, the savage fighting in trenches, the house-to-house clearing, the bloody ambushes in forests, happened within 300 yards. The power and length of the traditional rifle were often wasted energy, resulting in excessive noise and heavy recoil. The men in the thick of it, the frontline soldiers, knew this instinctively. When things got close, they often dropped their powerful rifles and reached for the submachine gun, the MP-40. The MP-40 could spray fire quickly, but its pistol rounds lacked the range and the stopping power necessary to dominate the open battlefield. A gaping, tactical hole existed, too much gun for long distance, and too little effective power for true close-quarters fighting. That is when a handful of brilliant German engineers stepped in. Men like Hugo Schmeisser and his team at the Hemmel Company. They dared to challenge a century of military dogma. They looked at the mud, the chaos, and the short ranges, and asked a simple, revolutionary question: what if the rifle only needed to shoot 300 yards? Just enough to cover the true, effective range of the infantryman. Their idea was to find a compromise. They didn't want the powerful, full-sized rifle round, but they also didn't want the weak pistol round. They created the 7.92 by 33 mm Kurz, the short cartridge. It was a rifle round, but dramatically shortened, reducing its power, reducing its recoil, and making it perfect for rapid, automatic fire. But Hitler initially hated the idea. He was stuck in the old doctrine, favoring the big, powerful rifle round. He viewed the project as a waste of good ammunition and ordered it canceled multiple times. The engineers, recognizing the future in their hands, decided to disobey. They simply changed the name of the project from machine carbine to machine pistol, MP-43, successfully disguising it as a submachine gun development, a type of weapon Hitler approved of, and kept building their true rifle. When the first operational prototypes reached the hands of the frontline troops, specifically units on the Eastern Front in late 1943, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. The soldiers, the men whose lives depended on their equipment, fired a weapon that possessed the range and penetration of a rifle, yet could be fired automatically from the shoulder with manageable recoil, like a submachine gun. The tactical difference was profound. The exhausted, retreating soldier was suddenly holding a lightweight weapon with a 30-round magazine, capable of putting down accurate, sustained fire at 300 yards. They no longer had to choose between the long rifle and the close-range machine pistol. They had both, perfectly combined. The initial reports pouring back to Berlin weren't about logistics or cost, they were about sheer firepower effectiveness. Unit commanders saw a measurable increase in kill ratios and defensive success. The soldiers immediately recognized its strategic genius and began calling it the Sturmgewehr, the assault rifle. A new category of weapon had been born. This was the kind of undeniable, battlefield success that even Hitler couldn't ignore. When the reports reached his bunker, filled with the demands of his desperate soldiers, he finally relented. He authorized its mass production and, perhaps reluctantly, sanctioned the name the soldiers had given it, the Sturmgewehr 44, or STG-44. The rifle, which had been born in secrecy and defiance, was now official. As it began to trickle out to the desperate, retreating German units, it instantly began to rewrite the fundamental rules of infantry combat. Its appearance didn't just equip the soldier, it fundamentally changed how he moved and how he fought. The technical brilliance of the STG-44 lay primarily in its reliable gas system. Engineers devised a robust method for siphoning off just enough gas from the shortened Kurz cartridge to cycle the action, but not so much that the recoil became unmanageable. It used a simple, robust tilting bolt mechanism which locked the cartridge firmly in place during firing, allowing it to withstand the higher pressures of a rifle round, which was impossible for a submachine gun blowback action. And the 30-round box magazine, that was the key to its tactical success. 30 rounds of rifle power, instantly available, meant the German soldier was no longer limited to 5 or 10 shots. He could achieve fire superiority over his enemy. He could attack with sustained fire, not just defend. It was an offensive tool that redefined the meaning of the word rifle. For the Allied troops facing this new weapon, the experience was terrifying and deeply confusing. They were accustomed to the German sound of battle, the deep, slow clack-clack of the Mauser bolt action, punctuated by the relentless shriek of the MG-42 machine gun. But suddenly, they were facing fire that sounded automatic, yet the bullets struck with the heavy impact of a rifle round, at ranges where only their own, dedicated machine guns should have been effective. American soldiers did not know what they were up against at first. Was it a new light machine gun? Was it a highly modified submachine gun? All they knew was that the enemy's close combat punch had suddenly become exponentially heavier. Their fear quickly turned to a deep, grudging fascination. They started picking up the fallen German rifles. They tested them. And they realized, right there in the dirt and the smoke, that this ugly, hastily built German weapon was the future. The STG-44 instantly blurred the line between the rifle and the submachine gun. It rendered both categories obsolete in its specific niche. Why carry a long, heavy rifle when this weapon did the same job out to 300 meters, but could be fired automatically? Why carry a submachine gun with weak pistol rounds when this had 30 rounds of rifle punch? It was the ultimate compromise, the perfect close-quarters infantry weapon. It fundamentally changed tactics. Trenches were no longer cleared solely by spraying SMGs. Now, disciplined bursts of Kurz fire could tear through light cover and neutralize targets quickly and efficiently. It allowed the squad leader to issue orders for sustained, suppressive fire without relying entirely on the heavy, crew-served machine gun. It gave the individual infantryman the immediate power to hold his own. But the vital question, the one that defines its entire legacy, still looms: did it come too late? Tragically, the answer is yes. It came completely too late. The rifle was brilliant, but brilliance cannot stop 10 million Soviet soldiers or negate the relentless power of the Allied bombing campaign. When it was finally approved in late 1943, Germany's industrial capacity was already fractured. They managed to produce maybe 425,000 of these rifles before the war ended. That was a drop in the ocean compared to the millions of soldiers fighting across two vast fronts. Most German units never saw one. They remained the privilege of elite formations or specific defensive companies. Imagine what the STG-44 could have done if it had been introduced in 1941, during the invasion of Russia. It would not have won the war, but it certainly would have changed the entire trajectory of the Eastern Front. Instead, it was reduced to being the tool of a doomed defense, a flash of genius at the moment of utter collapse. But the physical war ends, and the war of ideas begins. And that's where the STG-44 truly became immortal. Its DNA lived on. As the Soviets swept into Berlin, they captured these strange, revolutionary rifles. A brilliant young Russian engineer named Mikhail Kalashnikov and his team took the fundamental concept, the intermediate cartridge, the short-range dominance, the simplicity of the gas-operated mechanism, and they perfected it. The result was the AK-47. The AK-47 is not a direct copy, but the philosophy, the entire conceptual leap from the traditional rifle to the assault rifle, that was the undeniable legacy of the STG-44. The rest is history. The AK-47 and the American M16, both spiritual successors to the STG-44, became the defining weapons of every subsequent conflict, shifting the focus of infantry training worldwide from long-range precision to high-volume, controllable automatic fire. The era of the 1,000-yard rifle was over. The era of the assault rifle had begun. So, yes, it was Hitler's rifle. He signed the final order. But its story is ultimately one of the incredible speed with which human innovation and human destruction often walk the same path. Born of desperation, disguised by its creators, and almost too late for its own war, the Sturmgewehr 44 still managed to change battle forever. It is a sobering thought that the fundamental design for almost every infantry weapon carried today traces its lineage back to a desperate, late-war gamble in Nazi Germany. A brilliant, terrifying moment of mechanical genius that forever redefined how man fights man.